People across the world and down through time have so many different ways of caring for loved ones who have passed. To some, our expensive funerals here in the United States seem extravagant. In certain cultures, death is handled very simply. Each culture treats death a little differently, and in Jesus' time, people believed that they needed to bury the body of a person who died or place it in a cave or a tomb within 24 hours of death. They washed the body, wrapped it in burial cloth with separate strips of paper of cloth, binding the hands and the feet and the head, and then whisked it away. They also believed that the soul hovered near the body for 3 days after death, and at the end of 3 days, a family member would go to the tomb to verify death. The body remained in the tomb for 1 full year until only bones were left. Then family members gathered the bones, placed them in a stone box called an ossuary, and reburied them permanently. Lazarus and his sisters Mary and Martha loved Jesus and counted him as one of their closest friends. That's why when Lazarus falls seriously ill, close to death, Mary and Martha just know that Jesus will rush to Bethany to save him. But that isn't what happens. Jesus hears of Lazarus' grave illness in plenty of time to get there, but he delays until 4 days after Lazarus' death. Notice 4 days, not 3 or fewer. That means the soul, they would believe, is gone. The sisters cannot comprehend that Jesus would arrive as late as he does, and both Martha and then Mary, in anguish, say the same thing. They say, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." So many of us have said these exact words to God in the face of heartbreaking loss, especially the death of a loved one. Lord, how could you allow this terrible thing to happen? Why didn't you stop it when there was still time? And in moments like this, our faith in God can be shaken. It's clear in today's gospel that Jesus, as much as he loves Lazarus, chooses to delay. His disciples urge him to hurry up and get to Bethany to save Lazarus, but he says to them, "Lazarus is dead. For your sake, I am glad I was not there so that you may believe. But let us go to him." Jesus intends to work his most powerful sign yet. But letting Lazarus die comes at a huge personal cost to Jesus. Lazarus' sisters are like his own sisters. Causing them grief must be a horrendous experience for Jesus, and we know that he's heartbroken because he weeps. We hear that Mary kneels at Jesus' feet and says to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." And when Jesus sees her weeping and all the other people surrounding them weeping, he is greatly disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. He says, "Where have you laid him?" They say to him, "Lord, come and see." And Jesus begins to weep. I love this moment. The image of Jesus and his friends and Mary and all the people standing there crying together because they all loved Lazarus so much. Notice it doesn't say that Jesus shed a few tears. It says Jesus weeps. And to me, it is especially beautiful when men cry. Because often, especially men of my generation and before, have had to break through so much cultural pressure to always be stoic. And it's such a beautiful thing when they are allowed to express the full range of human emotions openly. One of my 2 brothers is a very big crier. And I have so many blissful memories, really, of him weeping all the way through his own wedding, heaving sobs of joy. Couldn't hear a word he said. And then kneeling at a communion rail the first time he ever took communion from me, weeping. When our dad died, of course, weeping. So many times crying as an expression of feeling all the pain and all the joy in life. And I think Jesus weeps because he is with Mary and Martha and all the people there, suffering right alongside them. He feels with them, fully alive, right there with them. And feeling with them with us includes a breaking heart. Next, Jesus is taken to the cave where his friend's body has been laid for 4 long days and works his sign. He calls out, "Lazarus, come out!" And we learn the dead man came out, his hands and feet bound with strips of cloth and his face wrapped in a cloth. And Jesus says to the people nearby, "Unbind him and let him go." And those who witness the miracle believe. The story of Lazarus is more than just a great miracle story from the height of Jesus' earthly ministry. It is a story for all of us. Lazarus is anyone and everyone who has ever felt lifeless, lost, spiritually dead, on a dangerously wrong path. Remember the story of the prodigal son, when the old man's favorite child runs off, squanders his fortune, and the old father actually says, when he returns, "This son of mine was dead." Yet when he returns home, his father forgives him, and he regains his life. Sometimes death means spiritual lifelessness and despair. When Jesus says to Mary and Martha, "I am the resurrection and the life," he means I can change your life right now. Believing in me, trusting me, means a new, eternal, forever way of life starting right this minute. It's no accident that the name Lazarus means God's help. God helps us come out of death into life. And this past week, the story of Lazarus got me thinking about a particular kind of death, which is depression. Maybe you know someone who has struggled with depression or is struggling with it now, or maybe it's you. Now, some people suffer bouts of depression brought on by terrible events in their lives, the loss of a loved one, the end of a marriage, the shock of a serious diagnosis, and others live in the grip of depression for months and even years. A friend of mine, Jamie, was telling me recently about her sister's depression. It was awful. For 2 years, her sister scarcely got out of bed. Her husband and children tried everything to get her to choose to live and said it was like living with a ghost. And I think you can imagine how they felt, so frustrated, at their wits' end, angry, hurt, confused. And when Jamie arrived, she didn't know what to do. She said to me, "I shook with fear to see my sister in this kind of living death." Remember when Jesus arrives at Lazarus' tomb and commands, "Come out, Lazarus." Immediately, the no longer dead man obeys. Now think about that moment when Lazarus is emerging from the dark and deathly tomb into the bright light of day, his hands and feet and head still bound by strips of cloth so he can barely move, tripping forward, uncertain, afraid. And at this completely helpless turning point moment for Lazarus, Jesus turns to the people standing there and says, "Unbind him." See what happens? Jesus resurrects Lazarus And we have a role too, a crucial role. We are the ones who unbind him. Jesus offers him freedom from death, and we get to cut him loose, help make his freedom come true. And this is what happened with Jamie and her sister. When Jamie arrived, instead of trying, like everyone else, to convince her sister to get out of bed, she crawled in with her. And they just lay there together for days, with Jamie speaking quietly, coaxingly. One day, she got Jamie to eat a little something. The next day, to sit up. And then, on a big breakthrough day, her sister agreed to let Jamie wash her hair. Before too long, they got out of bed and visited a store for a few minutes. And as you can see, eventually the strips of cloth that bound the sister's arms and legs and head started to loosen, and she could move a little again. The depression gradually started to lift, and she crossed back from death into life. Jamie does not take credit for her sister's recovery, but she knows she played a part. When Jesus said, unbind him, or in this case, unbind her, Jamie did. She was right there in the tomb-like bed with her sister and helped to set her free. For Lazarus, in the story, resurrection means new life after death. For so many of us, it means waking up to this life now. Our mission is to come to life and to bring others into life right along with us. We can help people out of their tombs and into the light, holding them, encouraging them, unwinding, removing the burial cloths, making sure they do not stumble as they step into the light and begin to live. Amen.